Hi, this is Steve Hutchinson with Hutchinson Family Offices with this month's video. Now, we haven't gotten a sponsor, but this is being filmed a couple days before tax season's completed, so I'm just getting a little extra boost here to see if I can make it through the day. So anyway, I wanted to kind of recap the financial markets for last quarter and talk about some trends that we believe and we think that are significant. Now, one of the first things we do is I sit down with our senior portfolio manager, Todd Walker, and we go through the benchmark performance for the last quarter, and we compare that to the S&P 500. One thing to understand about benchmarks is what we're trying to do is manage the volatility in portfolios more efficiently than, say, the outright buying of the S&P 500. This is an active approach towards our strategy, which fits into our household endowment strategy. Last quarter, when we took a look at the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, they were down about 2.5% for the S&P and 3.8% for the Dow Jones. That's pretty much what most people saw in the media. We looked at our benchmarks. They're down about 0.7% to 0.9%. So in other words, our benchmarks did exactly what they were supposed to do. They reduced the volatility in the portfolio. Now, when I go back and take a look at a number of accounts that are fully allocated into our models and we don't have a lot of special situations going on with just full allocation, what we're seeing is that they're slightly outperforming the benchmark, which is good, and that's net of all expenses. So our models are doing exactly what we expect them to do. Now, what do we expect to see from here? Last week's newsletter, we're continuing to believe that volatility is going to be the issue. The market's going to continue to trade in some type of range between 26.5 and 23.5. It's going to be in that range for quite a while. It's going to seem to some that it moves with the news, which in effect that isn't really what happens. It's very similar to what we saw in the mid to late 80s, where we saw the futures traders basically being the tail that wags the dog. So it's very important to keep a perspective on this. So we're very comfortable with how we're allocated. We're very comfortable with our sleeve strategy. I believe Todd Walker is doing an excellent job at making sure that the sleeves are managed properly, and I think we're getting the result we expect. Let's take a look at the fundamentals. We have growing employment. And quite frankly, we've had over 500,000 jobs created in the first quarter alone. That is significant. Secondly, we're having a reasonable interest rate policy. A few months back, they were talking about 10-year Treasury notes and how they were impacting the market. They were up around 3%. They've settled back to about 2.75. We don't really concern ourselves with 10-year Treasury rates until they get above 3.50, 3.75, because then historically the financial markets respond negatively to that rate. So that we're comfortable with the Fed policy right now. We still expect, we've had one interest rate increase. We think there's an outside chance we may see 3 more, but they've said only 2 more. We'll see what happens. They're in charge, we're not. Secondly, corporate earnings appear to be coming out fairly solid. Retail sector is suffering somewhat due to consolidations and recovering from the Christmas hangover. So, but overall, we're starting to see significant parts. Some areas that we feel that are going to basically look extremely well over the next 5 to 7 years is going to be in real estate and in senior housing. And we've been speaking to you about these particular strategies. We believe that these things do move in cycles, and we're starting to see cap rate compression both in these sectors, and that's causing these particular areas to improve quite significantly. In fact, Todd added a minimum of 5% to the portfolio of a interval fund we call Griffin Institutional, and that's designed to capture some of that potential there. Overall, we're very positive about things. As we close out this quarter, there is a definite chance that we would see more declines as we move into May. An old saying, sell in May and go away. I don't know that it means very much. I wrote last week, is the Trump rally over? I never really attributed any market rally to any president, although I do believe that his election did unleash a little bit what we might call flush production. But I think things are starting to level off, and we'll go from there. Geopolitical events are going to drive the news. What goes on in Syria, what goes on with North Korea, what goes on with trade. These things are going to drive the news, but we don't believe in the long term they're going to have a significant impact on corporate earnings. There's always that black swan, and they're difficult to project, so we're going to kind of stay with our focus, which is the fundamentals. That'll do it for this month's video. Have a great next quarter, and we'll talk to you again.